Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, we'll be previewing the huge game at the Emirates Stadium on Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. kickoff, Arsenal v Spurs. Now, on the show today, we have got three channel regulars. We've got Gary Maloney back with us. Gary, how are you?
Hey, Chris, you're right. Yeah, really good. Already feeling a bit sick and nervous for tomorrow. Backstage I was talking to Kenny. I hate this game. It's probably my most hated game of the season. Well, on a par with Stamford Bridge. So I'm not looking forward to the game. But apart from that, I'm all right. I mean, I think it was the timing as well of we got them tomorrow and then seeing Sol Campbell's little, I don't know what you can call that with Google, but all of those things today have really rubbed me up the wrong way. And I'm trying to stay calm at the moment, but I'm annoyed.
We're going to get into it. Don't worry, Gary.
Yeah.
We're going to get into it. Also back with us is channel regular Melvin, all the way from Malta. Melvin, hello. How are you?
Hello, Chris. I'm doing well. A big one this week. I'm sure we'll get through it today, and looking forward to talk to Kenny to see what the Arsenal side are feeling. And sorry to jump the gun here with mentioning him, but yeah, looking forward to this one. I've heard him speak on the podcast a few times, and he's, I think, one of the most probably sensible Arsenal fans I've ever heard. So
agreed, he is.
So looking forward to this one.
Do they exist? Do sensible Arsenal fans exist?
No, I think Kenny is close to that.
Hold on. Kenny was already giving us excuses in the green room, but let's introduce him first of all. We've got Kenny Ken back with us, of course, Arsenal fan. Kenny, how are you, mate?
Definitely, it's one of my favourite podcasts. Take away the fact you're your Tottenham channel. I do hope you do well in the awards you're going for. I really hope you get an award because I enjoy it. And most importantly, this is the biggest game of the season. Tottenham home and away. I don't want anyone in the chat to think otherwise. There's a lot of Arsenal fans who think that Man United is a bigger game than Spurs, and they think Chelsea's a bigger game. They even think Liverpool's a bigger game. Some of them don't even think, Spurs are rivals. Well, I'm sorry, they are rivals. It's that game. Both games you can't lose. You can't lose any game, but to lose against Tottenham it just isn't on, really. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, another thing as well. I'm Islington born and bred, so you can't tell me that Tottenham isn't a massive, massive game. But a good thing about this podcast is I'm not the only one who's born and bred in Islington.
Kenny, the reason why we have you back on this podcast is because you're always, on the level. You're never on here slagging off Spurs. You always point out Tottenham's good points. And let's start with you, because how are you feeling right now as an Arsenal fan? Because in the Premier League, of course, sitting second, everything's going okay in the Premier League. You might, choose different words to me. But this last week, a 2-0 home defeat against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup semi-final first leg. And, of course, now out of the FA Cup. How are you feeling right now?
Well, first and foremost, morale's very low at the football club. Like the scenes that you've seen, like the podcasts you'd have watched and the fan cams you'd have watched on Lee Judge's channel and obviously on the main channels, they are genuine. A lot of Arsenal fans are genuinely concerned. In fact, a lot of Arsenal fans are giving up the league title. It's not just me saying it. That's exactly how we feel. I'm not going to get the violins out, but I just have to say as it is, we're out of form. Odegaard is completely out of form. On the eye, you're probably going to look at Odegaard and you're going to think, right, he's one of Arsenal's main players. Trust me, since he's come back from injury, he's only had one good game, West Ham away, at the London Stadium. We've lost Bukayo Saka. Basically, the team is built Saka FC. If Saka doesn't play, then we've got no, attacking endeavour. The team, we've got no je ne sais quoi. We haven't got a player that can get something out of nothing. And that's how we're going to struggle. Martinelli's out of form. Trossard plays like a Colts player, and we've got a conundrum as well. We've got a massive, massive conundrum with Kai Havertz. Obviously, you saw his performance against Man United, and then what a lot of Arsenal fans don't want to admit, that Declan Rice is a bit of an enigma, that he's not the 105 million pound player that a lot of Arsenal fans think he is. In fact, when they say Declan Rice is, we only got him half price, I say that to a lot of Arsenal fans, I say it on here now, Declan Rice, we got him for twice the price without the extras. Trust me, he is not a number 6. He's not even a good number 6. In fact, you know, how do you pay 105 million pound for a number 6 when your best number 6 is Thomas Partey still? You know, how did Arteta manage that? And then you go and buy Zubimendi. That is basically an admission that the player you spent 105 million pounds on isn't the player that you think he is. And don't get me started on Kai Havertz, but right now, morale is really low. But the good thing about it is that we've got Tottenham. And when you're going through really bad times, again, Tottenham at home is the best fixture you can need. But, and there's a big but, there's an opportunity here for you guys to, you know, like I said, put the wounded dog down. Because I'll tell you one thing, there's opportunities now with the injuries we have, the way, you know, Man United played us, the way Newcastle play us. And one thing that Spurs have got in their favour, and just proved to me that he can be pragmatic. Liverpool in the League Cup, he was pragmatic. Man United away, he was pragmatic up to a set. And Man City, you're basically clinical. You didn't have many chances against them, but you're clinical and you're pragmatic. You pressed them and you got men behind the ball and you basically stopped the through ball. So you're capable of doing it. So if you replicate that tomorrow, who knows? But right now, it's a good time to play Arsenal. That's what I'm saying.
Kenny, of course, we love having you on this channel. And, you know, I've spoken, you know, very highly about you in the past on this channel as well. But there does always seem to be excuses. Mikel Arteta last week was using the excuse about the football. What do you make of all these excuses all the time?
Well, Mikel Arteta wasted a good opportunity to keep his mouth shut. If someone asks you a stupid question, what a top manager would do would inquire why they asked the question, or actually talk about the reason why we lost a football match, because Newcastle was the better team. All he did was made a headline out of nothing. And then instead of that's what I would do. I would just say, what are you talking about the ball for? It was the same ball for Newcastle. The fact is, we lost against Newcastle because Newcastle defended better than us. They controlled the midfield, both from an attacking point of view and from a defensive point of view. And they had a clinical striker in Isak. That's why they won the football match. The ball had nothing to do with it. The ball was, what's he going to say about the ball on Sunday? Because it's a different ball. We noticed the ball was different, but you win some, you lose some. And we lost to two good teams. Got to be able to take defeat a bit better.
Kenny, who's going to be in the final of the Carabao Cup?
Well, I want it to be Liverpool versus. I want it to be Liverpool versus Arsenal, but it won't be Arsenal. So, if I was to get my crystal ball out, I'm going to ask you guys a question, to Melvin and Gary and yourself. Can you see Spurs putting 10 men behind the ball at Anfield and just repelling attack upon attack in a month's time? Can you see you guys yourselves doing it? Because if you do that, you're in the final.
It's going to be a very, very, very difficult game.
Well, I'll be watching it. Yeah. You know, I won't tell you who I'm supporting, but I'll be watching it.
Yeah. It's going to be very, very difficult. And I've said this many times, Kenny, in the last couple of days, the amount of times I've driven away from Anfield and we just simply haven't got a result. And that is one of our grounds where we really struggle. Also at the Emirates, also at Stamford Bridge. These three grounds, the amount of times I've gone over the years and come back disappointed. Gary, let's come to you. Obviously, we weren't disappointed on Sunday. We got a 3-0 win in the end at Tamworth. Yeah. Before we talk about the Arsenal game on Wednesday, just give me your thoughts on what you saw on Sunday, because there was a lot of frustrated Spurs fans, of course, because, you know, Tamworth played exceptionally well. You've got to give them some credit. 0-0 at 90 minutes. It meant that Ange Postecoglou then had to use the likes of Heung-min Son, Solanke, Kulusevski had to come on, which, of course, we would have hoped that they would have been rested ahead of this Arsenal game. But what did you make of Sunday's performance?
Yeah, but Chris, you know, I came on your podcast I don't know if it was the day before the game, was it? Was it the day before? I think it was. And I said to you, I said, at best, it will be 2 or 3-0. And it will be a very difficult, frustrating afternoon and game. And I know, look, and there's, everyone's got an idea of Tamworth and when Tottenham go to play them. And I know some fans were saying it's going to be 5-6, and there was things going around about Timo Werner's going to score a hat-trick and, and all these other things. But it didn't surprise me in the slightest, I was calm because I knew eventually we would win the game, but I knew it was going to be very difficult. Tamworth, lower league, plastic pitch, them players were up for it. The fans, like, everyone was giving it to Ange Postecoglou, like we saw, to the players. It's never going to be easy, and I'm not making excuses for Tottenham with that. Yes, they are a far better player, and Timo's week's wage is more than what Tamworth probably earned for the year. All players, management, and everyone, staff included. But did anyone think it was going to be easy? I didn't. Did anyone really think that Timo was going to have a great performance and score? I didn't. So when that game ended and we got a 3-0, like I said to my boy, I told you we'd win it. But the scoreline, I think, to be honest, was a little bit flattering. And, you saw yourself right at the end. He had that opportunity. I mean, look, I said we'd keep a clean sheet like we did because Kinski is brilliant. I mean, if you go back 2 weeks and we played Tamworth and you have Fraser Foster in goal, do we come away and win that game? Probably not. So for me, it was exactly what I expected. And, and almost, Chris, we've seen it so many times. Tottenham seem to play better and up their game more when they're the underdogs. And I don't know if it's a mentality thing, but it's almost like the players just weren't up for it. They weren't up for it. Johnson wasn't up for it. Apart from when Kulu and that came on, most of the players there just didn't really look up for it or interested, which I don't know if you can just say it's the surroundings, the conditions, or is it a mentality thing? But, it's not the first time, Chris, we played these lower league teams and almost got out. It's happened on a number of occasions, But I do think if you was to put, I know there was a lot of people talking, if that was Liverpool, there'd be 6 up, 7 up. If that was Arsenal, I'm not so sure. I think for any team going there, that would have been a very difficult game because Tamworth, they were on good form, Tamworth. So I'd like to say to myself that any Premier League team that went there on that Sunday would have struggled. Maybe not as much as Tottenham, but they would have struggled, I think. So, yeah.
The throw-ins were a real threat. Gary, stand with you. Antonin Kinski, I don't know whether you saw the stat earlier today, the first goalkeeper in 100 years in a Spurs shirt to keep clean sheets the first 2 games that they've played in.
I know.
Oh, that's incredible. What have you made so far?
But I mean, look, we saw it literally. I mean, I think, I was in the sort of the boat where I felt a little bit sorry for Austin because he had such a good game when he played for us. I was a bit like, do we let Austin play this one? I mean, forget about Fraser Foster. I mean, he was just making the numbers up like Timo, but I felt a bit bad for Austin. But within 5 minutes, Chris, of that Liverpool game kicking off, the confidence, like I said to you, from Austin, and it just went. It's a weird thing, right? Because I don't know if you felt it, Chris, and sensed it, but once he's done that little chip over and done a couple of good balls out and stuff, it's like all the fans and everyone in the stadium just took a big sigh, a deep breath, and just relaxed a little bit. It was just the weirdest thing ever. It was just almost like a moment. It's like like when a switch has been switched. I think everyone realised there and then we've got a good goalkeeper here. And we didn't really fully feel like that with Foster, did we? Look, I'm not gonna get on his back. He had a couple of good games for us, Foster. Ultimately, he saved us against who was it? Was it Aberdeen? Who did we play in the Rangers? Right at the end. That was a great save, right? That was a great save. But then you want to think about the game against Man U and Liverpool. He wasn't good. I don't think you're ever going to get those sort of performances of Kinski. He's just too good, Chris. He's brilliant, honestly. So, yeah, for me, I think there's going to be a lot more clean sheets. Unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be one at the Emirates. But who knows? Maybe it could be a 0-0 score draw ball, maybe.
Gary, very quickly, just give me 2 names. Who is going to be in the Carabao Cup final?
Oh, yes, Newcastle and Tottenham. That's a definite, 1,000,000%. Chris, very quickly, I'm more confident about us going to Anfield in the second leg than what I am playing Arsenal tomorrow. That's a fact. and you will see how much more the players are up for it in that second leg up at Anfield. Chris, you're going to drive away. I'll probably be there that night as well. Hopefully, Melvin, you are there too. And we're going to leave that stadium at the end of it, and we're going to go, can't believe we're in the final. And we're going to say, but look how good Tottenham played. And we'll say, yeah, why don't they do it every week? You know, honestly, we're there. I know we're there. And how often do I get my predictions wrong, Chris?
Yeah, just don't get carried away, Gary.
I'm not getting carried away because I don't think we're going to beat Arsenal tomorrow. So I'm not getting too carried away, am I?
Right.
But I just got a good feeling with the Anfield one. I think we will come away with a draw, 1-1, and we'll go through.
Yeah, one game at a time. Let's hope so, because we could do with a day out of Wembley, and we could do lifting a trophy finally after 17 years.
Honestly, it's long overdue, mate. I'd love it.
So, Melvin, let's come to you. How would you reflect on this past week?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting game. We did get through in the end. It took extra time, which wasn't ideal. I mean, but the players, you know, with the conditions, the pitch, the size of the pitch reminds me of the old White Hart Lane. It was so tight, you know, the fans, you know, right there in your face, screaming things to Ange. And, you know, a win is a win, and we're still in the cup. Something that, you know, unfortunately, our friend today cannot say for his team. So I know we're in the fourth round, and we're going to face Villa. The game I think, wasn't even enjoyable to watch. I don't think I even celebrated the first goal. I just stayed, you know, quiet, and it was expected that we should be beating this team. And just happy to still be in the competition. You know, we went through with little to no injuries. Unfortunately, Timo was injured, which is obviously a massive miss for us, which is something that probably no Spurs fan will say. But yeah, I mean, we rested some key players, and for tomorrow, and yeah, we're still in the cup. That's the main thing.
Melvin, who do you think will be in the Carabao Cup final?
I think Newcastle have a really solid chance, you know, taking a 2-0 lead at home. You know, we went to Newcastle, and when we lost to them, even though we played well early in the season, they're you know, Newcastle are in a similar situation to us. This is probably their biggest game of the season, because they want to be in that cup final probably more than we do. I'm not saying that I don't want to be in that cup final as well, but I think Tottenham and Newcastle are two clubs with they're supported really, really well. And their fans are, in a way, very, very hungry for a trophy. I mean, I'm sure there are many fans alive that never seen Newcastle win a trophy. I mean, I've seen Spurs win a trophy in my first season supporting them. So I've seen us lift a trophy. So Newcastle will probably have, you know, that excitement, that, in a way, desperation, that real motivation to try to win a trophy, and to have Tottenham and Newcastle in a final potentially, you know, because we still have to go to Anfield, which is very difficult. But to have that type of final would be extremely, in a way, nerve-wracking to me, to be in a cup final with them, because I would feel that they want it just as much as I do. And I think it would hurt to see them and their trophy drought before we do. But we take it one game at a time, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, their trophy drought though, Melvin, is like about 56 years or something ridiculous, isn't it? Where you're thinking we haven't won one in 17 years. There's like 50 odd years. Kenny, let's come to you. What have you made of Tottenham this season?
Well, thing what I made of Tottenham, I remember an earlier podcast we did when we did two shows. We did the Premiership prediction show, and we done the the North London Derby show. And one of the things I was very critical of Ange, I was critical of the way he was, the expansive way he was playing, where he was getting two of your fullbacks to invert, and he was basically like what he was trying to do. He was playing a high tempo game, but coming back the other way. That's when teams were finding a lot of spaces, and that has occurred in a lot of games. The Newcastle game, you played brilliantly. that game. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant game of football. You scored early, but you made two key mistakes. But one thing you did do is that you played well, but to no avail. And I've seen that a lot. Ipswich at home, you shouldn't really be losing Ipswich, really.
No.
When Ipswich came to the Emirates Stadium, we scored the first goal, and Ipswich just kept the scoreline down. They had no ambition to win that game. So that's a result that should never really be happening. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of your fans turned on Ange wasn't the fact he lost to Liverpool in the league. It's how you lost. It was the way Liverpool, every attack, he wasn't like sorting out his mistakes. The mistake you're making, the same mistake. Naive defending, naive attacking, and every time you lost the ball and turned over, Liverpool were just basically walking into your box and scoring. But one thing about Ange, and I said it, off air, and I said it in the beginning, Ange is capable of becoming pragmatic. He was like that against Liverpool. He did play like a very pragmatic game at Old Trafford, and he did the same at Man City. So I don't understand why Ange will tell anyone and listen, this is the way I play, and just deal with it. I don't get it. Especially when you haven't got your full team out.
Yeah.
When you don't have Van der Ven in your lineup, and you're trying to play the high line when Dragisin hasn't got the pace of a Van der Ven. I don't understand it. And then even when Van der Ven's on the side, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Rob C. He's actually in the chat. He's Spurs. He's from Islington like me, but he's Tottenham. And one of the things we were talking about is how the injuries Van der Ven's getting. And a lot of those injuries are because last-ditch tackles where he's expanding his hamstrings. He keeps on going over hamstring injuries. I was thinking, hang on here, you're playing a high line, but you only do it with one defender. So that's one of the things that if you don't have the players who actually complement your the way he wants to play, or i.e. the inverted full backs, you don't have to doggy. I'm saying change it a bit. Just, be a bit more pragmatic in order to get results. And if there's an opportunity for you to play that Ange style, do it in the right times. Because in the Premiership, as I've mentioned before, there's a lot of good teams in the Premiership. I mean, even the teams who are not in the top 10, they're teams who I say can beat you on their day. And when you're not playing pragmatic football, which Tottenham should be playing, that's why there's no accident why you've got 9 defeats. You shouldn't have 9 defeats with a team like that, especially when you've got some very, very good players. You shouldn't have a situation that in the calendar year 2024 you've got so many defeats. A lot of it is down, to the way you play. But one thing Ange is capable of doing, he can adjust. You've got a problem in defence because you having to play Archie Gray there alongside Dragisin. Now, tomorrow, would you play Archie Gray, an 18-year-old in the North London derby, his first North London derby? Jed Spence is definitely going to play. Again, I was astonished that Jed Spence was never, ever used by Conte. I couldn't believe it. I saw his performances from Nottingham Forest against us in 2022, and I was thinking, this is a guy that can go on and have a good career at Tottenham, but it never worked, worked out. So I find it quite astonishing. But Ange is using him, and when I watch Spurs play, he's probably one of your best players. He's consistent. He's got the energy. He can get up and down. Yeah, which is what he was doing at Nottingham Forest. So he's a fine. I'm not sure. And Archie Gray's a centre half, but one thing I like about Archie Gray, not only does he give it his all, he's an intelligent player who I believe can play anywhere. But I don't think centre half is going to be his position. One thing I argue with Spurs fans, family members of my good friend Robert C, he's telling me that Son's lost a lot of pace. So I can only bow to your superior judgment and to your expertise, because for me, whenever I hear the name Heung-min Son, I get in a rash, especially when it's a derby day. He scares me. Harry Kane clearly scared me, but Heung-min Son absolutely scared me. But what I'm hearing is that he's lost a yard of pace. I hope it's true, because he's a player that scares the life out of me. I do like I do like Solanke. I do think that, you know, if you keep Solanke fit, I think in the second season he will go on to score the goals you need. He's just feeling his way. But one thing I like about him, first press, he's very good in the first press, and also can hold the ball up and he works his nuts off. And he does have the goals will come for that guy. In terms of like Brennan Johnson, again, when I look at Ben Johnson and Timo Werner, I see pace, but where's the end product? I don't see end product with Timo Werner. I don't see end product with Brennan Johnson. What I do see from Brennan Johnson is that if you do get on the outside, get him in behind the defence, you put a low crosses in. One thing he's done this season, especially since he got criticised on the North London derby, he gets on the end of things. He has a goal threat, regardless of whether he doesn't look up or he makes the wrong decisions. At least he's contributing goals. Timo Werner gets in great positions, but the goalkeeper's always making the comfortable saves or it's going wide. That is mental, absolutely mental. I don't understand how that happens. You know, how he's getting games. I'm sure you've got some young players who can do it.
So many injuries, Kenny. That's the thing. So many injuries.
Well, that's the thing. You've got a lot of injuries, but you've got another thing as well about one player I mentioned is James Maddison. Now, I like James Maddison, but sometimes when I look at James Maddison play, he reminds me of a boy band member who basically looks the part. He's got the abs, he's got the muscles, he's got the tan, the good looks. He's on everyone's posters. Yeah, he's on everyone's posters, but he can't sing.
Yeah,
that's what James Maddison looks like. A pop star who looks the part but can't sing.
Yeah,
that he fights to deceive. There's games where I look at James Maddison, I'm thinking, hang on here, they finally got a player who plays the kind of football that Spurs are used to. Like when I was growing up, you had players like Ardiles, Hoddle, and Villa, ball-playing players. Then after that, you had Gaza, who played ball-playing play, and you had Chrissy Waddle, who played with that sort of panache that Spurs fans expect. But James Maddison lived up to that. But Bentancur, he's always injured. So that's another thing that I think that Spurs fans should be frustrated about is James Maddison's inconsistency since he got injured. He hasn't been playing with that level that you expect for a player of that size. And Bentancur, a player that I rate really highly, sadly, you know, he's got concussion injury issues. But saying that, a team of your ilk should be, you know, like being in that conversation with the top four. You shouldn't be where you are. But again, it's stuck injuries and the manager's refusal to be pragmatic and understand the league he's in. But the problem is, what will frustrate me if I was a Tottenham fan, if I saw the Liverpool performance and those two performances against Man United and Man City, I'll be absolutely livid. I'll be so angry with my manager that he's not like you know, like as I was saying, being more pragmatic, having a plan B, because it's absolute rubbish. Him saying that I can only play one way, it's rubbish. He's shown he can play, he can be pragmatic, and he's shown he can win the big games. So stop lying and stop being stubborn. And just admit that sometimes you have to be flexible.
Kenny, there's a lot there to pick up on. With the injuries, I think it is very, very fair to say, without calling it excuses, the amount of injuries, suspensions and other problems that Ange Postecoglou has had since he has arrived at Spurs, you know, even last season, but the amount of injuries that Spurs have had this season has been absolutely ridiculous. But Spurs are not the only team in the Premier League to have injuries. There have been a lot of injuries this season, but interestingly, in the last couple of days, Spurs again, because they did this last season as well under Postecoglou, they have advertised 3 key roles within the medical department. So they're changing the medical department again at the football club. What do you put all of the injuries down to? Because a lot of Spurs fans at the moment are blaming the way that we play with the high line, the intensity, the way that Ange Postecoglou is training these players. But I've said a number of times, when Pochettino was the Spurs manager, the way that we used to train was so intense. It can't be, you know, worse under Postecoglou now, can it? Kenny, yeah. You're on mute.
One thing. Oh, sorry about it. One reason why I think you're getting injuries is the same reason why I also get injuries. Is I think people especially teams that are in the top 6, they shouldn't underestimate the new format of the European leagues. Now, you're in the Europa League and we're in the Champions League. It's not a group stage now where, sorry if kids are watching, in the group stage of the Europa League and the Champions League, there was arse protection for the big teams. There was arse protection for the Real Madrids, the Bayern Munichs, where they were seeded. The same, in the Europa League, which you were in, had it been last year's formats, Man United and Spurs would have been seeded. Now you've got a situation where you've got a league where it's a league, all 36 teams, where basically you're playing a game every 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
And if you're playing a game every 2 to 3 days, there's intensity, which means teams that are, like Aston Villa in the Champions League, teams that you're playing as well, that normally would probably finish 3rd or 4th in the Europa League or the Champions League, then they've got a chance of getting that top 8 or even getting the playoffs. There's more games. You're having 8 games, a game every 2 to 3 days. Arsenal got a small squad. Spurs have got a small squad. They're getting injuries. You're not rotating players. So if you don't rotate players, you've got injuries where your Premier League's intense, your Europa League game's intense, and then you've got a situation where you've got a smaller squad. Of course you're going to get injuries. I don't care what anyone says. If you play a game every 2 or 3 days and you don't rotate, you're going to get injuries. I promise you're going to get injuries because that is what's happened at Arsenal. And that's what's happening to you guys. I don't care what anyone says, the intensity. And then also another reason why you get injuries, the Christmas program, for me, should get rid of it. There shouldn't be games on Boxing Day or New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. You should basically have a break, the same break that we have in the European leagues. The reason why is because when you're playing these sort of games at these time of days, when you're basically running it empty with this new Champions League, Europa League conference format, you're not going to see a quality game of football. What you're going to see is players go down with injury. Arsenal have seen it and you've seen it. That's my point. And both managers are stubborn. Both managers do not have a Scooby-Doo how to rotate players. I see it with Arsenal and I see the same with you.
Gary, we've asked Kenny about Spurs. I want to now ask you about Arsenal. What have you made of their season? Because although they've had a poor week, going out of one cup competition and 2-0 down against Newcastle after the first leg, they are doing pretty well in the Premier League table. They are sitting in second right now, 6 points behind Liverpool, who, of course, are the front runners at the moment. So 40 points from 20 games. They do have a pretty decent record as well recently, certainly in the Premier League and the Champions League. What have you made of them this season?
I think they've done what I expected them to do. I think they've had a good season. I think, I hear a lot of Arsenal fans saying, obviously, if they don't win the Premier League, it's a failure. Arteta's failed and stuff like that. But it's very, very difficult to win that Premier League. You've seen it yourself. The points total with Liverpool and City and stuff. And I think the argument, will be they should have signed a proper striker. I mean, Havertz, and Jesus. It's not going to win you the Premier League, is it? Let's be honest. But they're getting close. But I do feel, it's looking like they're not going to win the Premier League this season. And if they don't, then I think Arteta's time will be done. I don't think he'll have much longer as a manager. I don't know what Kenny thinks about it, but I think this will be, it's looking like they're not going to get the Premier League. They can't get anything else. I think if they don't get anything this season, I think his time will probably come to an end is how I'm feeling about it. But look, as a Tottenham fan who absolutely despises Arsenal, hates them, it pains me to say, I think, they've had a decent enough season. It's not been terrible. I think they've done really well. But, if you're an Arsenal fan, I think a lot of the Arsenal fans are looking at that now, thinking, well, where's the progression? If they finish second again, or, they may finish third and they don't win anything, is that progression? Probably not. And will there be a lot of fans probably wanting to change? Probably will be. But, I mean, Kenny will probably be a better person to answer that. But I get that feeling where I think the Arsenal fans in general have been fairly happy. They've been almost winning the Premier League, but not quite. But it looks like this season they may fall away slightly more from winning it. and you know, again, gone out the FA Cup very early. You know, looking like the, you know, listen, it's all ifs and buts. You know, Liverpool could lose to Nottingham Forest. They could beat Newcastle. You know, big win. They're in the final of the Carabao Cup. You know, all of a sudden they're 3 points behind Liverpool. Who knows when Liverpool play that game against Everton? We've seen Everton get results against Liverpool again. It can all change. But sitting here tonight, you know, my gut feeling is all those things aren't going to happen. And I think it will be coming to the end of Arteta's reign at Arsenal, is what I'm thinking.
Gary, when you look at that Arsenal team and that Arsenal squad, who do you worry about?
Well, I mean, the main one I worry about is injured at the moment. It's Saka, but he is my main worry. I know people are saying, you know, Odegaard isn't on form and isn't great, but again, Odegaard really worries me. And Rice, you know, and I speak to a lot of Arsenal fans, and Kenny was saying it before we came on the show and stuff. I don't think he's necessarily very happy with Rice or Odegaard, but those players for me make me very, very nervous. But listen, you know, the same way Arsenal fans will be rubbing their hands thinking, thank God Harry Kane ain't playing in Nottingham Derby anymore, is how we're feeling about Saka not being there. Because it's every game Saka scores, isn't it? And it was the same with Harry Kane. So I get why a lot of Arsenal fans are looking at this game thinking this could be the game where where Tottenham get a result. I think it was 2012, was it? You know, since we last done it. I know they're looking at it thinking
2010.
2010, I beg your pardon. They're probably looking at it thinking, well, you know, this could be maybe an opportunity for Tottenham to get another win at the Emirates. But hand on heart, Chris, I can't see it. You know, like form, injuries, it all goes out the window with a North London derby. And I've been here many, many times before. The same feeling I had about Tamworth not being an easy game is the same feeling I have about away to Arsenal. Things don't generally go our way.
Will you stop having all these feelings, Gary?
No, you know, they're going to get a penalty. We know that already. They'll score this one because it's against Tottenham. You know, I think the best we could come away with in that game tomorrow would be a draw. But, you know, in a nutshell, I think Arsenal are doing good, but not as good as last season. And I think at the end of the season, if they finish with nothing, I think Arteta will be gone, mate.
Gary, out of the Spurs team and of course the Arsenal team, what Spurs players in this current team would get into the Arsenal side, would you say? Into their starting 11?
Wow. You would probably only have to really say it would be Kulusevski and Van de Ven. And I wouldn't say any other players.
Melvin, let's come to you on this point. Who would get into the Arsenal current starting 11 out of the Spurs team?
Solanke, obviously. I think Arsenal missed a trick in the summer. They didn't sign either Solanke. They could have went for Ivan Toney. I think they're desperate for a striker at the moment. I don't think Kai Havertz, I think, worked is how they wanted the signing to work out. I think Arsenal would be in a much more comfortable position if they had probably a more established striker. Which with the lineup, you can't help to say Heung-min Son, like Kenny said, Heung-min Son on his day, he's world class if he's rested, and when he's sharp and he's fully fit, Heung-min Son can be really dangerous. And I don't think if we're saying from the injured players, perhaps Guti Romero is on his day, he's world class and a player I really, really like. Arsenal are a really strong team. I don't think many would get in. I think most would struggle to get in. I think their midfield is pretty strong. I don't think any other Spurs players would fit in. Maybe Spence at the moment, he's playing really, really well, but I hate to say it, but when we do these things and when we try to do combined 11s and we try to force our players in, and usually in the past we've had more players than them.
Yes.
And then we go to the Emirates and they beat us. So in a way, if they have more players than us in these combined 11s, and it's like it means I hate to swear, but it means fuck all sometimes, these things. But it's the result. I remember doing these things and saying to myself a couple of years ago, I wouldn't take one Arsenal player, and all of a sudden, like 5 years ago, when we were finishing above them consistently, and now all of a sudden we went through a phase and a path, our football club, where we're struggling to put our own players in these combined 11. So Arsenal have done good things in the last couple of years to be in the position there, and I'm thinking that Spurs are a few years behind Arsenal at the moment, where we are in our project. But I don't think a game like tomorrow, Arsenal are clear of us. I mean, I think Postecoglou we have a philosophy where we fight. I mean, we fought Liverpool, who are the best team in Europe at the moment, at home, and even with Newcastle, even though we lost, there's a fight in this team. And I think Arsenal, I don't think, are mentally prepared for the fight that we're going to take to them to the Emirates. I think even though they sometimes can beat us with quality, I think the players have this mentality that they're going to go and give Arsenal a really, really big fight tomorrow. And we'll see what's going to happen, because they're obviously missing some of their key players. I mean, Saka over the last year just scares you. That's a big miss for them. And I think with our new goalkeeper, and the confidence he's instilling in the back line, how settled he is in the corners, and how dangerous Arsenal can be from corner kicks, is something that I was looking today at the last game we played, and they only beat us by 1-0, and it wasn't really a convincing game, which they won. I mean, I think Raya was one of the men of the match for that day. And if it wasn't for him, we would have potentially won or gotten a point from that game. I think Arsenal, even though they're a very strong and physical team on the day, we beat them on possession, shots on target, but on the day they still got the 3 points. I think the way Arteta's setting up Arsenal is to be tough, resilient, difficult to beat, but at the same time he's sacrificing the attack at times. So he's gonna set up a team where he's gonna make us really, really fight and be difficult to score. I mean, Arsenal can keep a lot of clean sheets, something that we haven't done a lot this season. So if we keep a third clean sheet in a row, which is something very rare at this football club at the moment, I think we can win. I think we can win if we keep a clean sheet. Simple as that. Keep a third clean sheet in a row, and we'll get the 3 points.
Yeah, easier said than done, I think. What an interesting stat this is, Melvin, here. Because I feel like the first 15 minutes of the game is vitally important to both sides, because Arsenal have conceded a league high 28% of their Premier League goals in the opening 15 minutes of games this season. That is 5 out of 18. Meanwhile, Tottenham have scored more goals in this time period than any other side, which is 11. The first 15 minutes is going to be vital, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we historically score first at the Emirates as well. I think in the past, I remember, Harry Kane scoring, and we always go 1-0 up. And in my head, I always say to myself, too soon. We score in the first half. And I just say, we scored too quickly. I'd rather have scored later in the second half. But
a minute from time.
Yeah. I honestly hate these games. I hate playing them at the Emirates. It's a weird one to be on a Wednesday, and I probably won't sleep until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. because there's an hour time difference. But it's one of those games where if you win, you don't want to go to sleep, and if you lose, you want to try to go to sleep. But it's one of those. It's gonna be. I think a win for Spurs will really not cheer us up, but it would really help us in this season, because it's one of those games where you win, the fans are happy, all of a sudden, the excitement continues into the League Cup, the FA Cup, and will help us go up the table, which is something we need to do, because our current form. You know, the way we've been playing this season doesn't reflect our position. We don't deserve to be where we are. I feel we've played a lot better than the points on the board, and we should be a lot closer to the top four. But our team is still young, still growing, and hopefully we'll upset the guys at the Emirates.
Kenny, before I come to you, let's hear from Mikel Arteta on the North London derby.
Yeah, probably the nicest game of the season to watch and to play, certainly, because of the atmosphere, because what it means to our people, what it means to us. Everybody is involved in the game. So this is something that is in our hands, for example. It's and let's create the best atmosphere that we have played at the Emirates. That's an objective. That's something that we control. Players, staff, and all the supporters that turn up tomorrow. So this is something that we can do. So let's do it.
Kenny, the nicest game of the season. How does this game make you feel? You know, when you wake up tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, how are you going to be feeling? When are you going to start feeling those nerves?
You know what? A few days before the game, today I'm nervous. In the morning I'll be nervous. It's the biggest game of our calendar. Yeah. And I love home games. I love the home games. What I love about these games is that if I was to tell you guys this, you probably know this yourselves, but a lot of the Spurs fans, whenever they play home games, some of them who live in Stevenage, Welwyn Garden City, they have to come through Finsbury Park to go home. So if Spurs are at home, if you come back for a Spurs game, you give it an hour and a half, and you go to Finsbury Park, there are loads of Spurs. Finsbury Park and Arsenal area is full of your fans. But on North Derby Day, whenever we play Spurs at home, one of my mates who works at like Finsbury Park Station, he says we don't let Spurs fans come into Finsbury Park. We send them all the way to King's Cross and then put them on the Piccadilly line and tell them to get off at Arsenal. I just think that's Derby Day. That's what I absolutely love. I love getting up. I love walking in the ground, and I'm just thinking it's Spurs. And then when I was a little toe rag, I used to love to go to the away end at the Highbury, and I love to go to the away in the Emirates. And I used to think, and they say, Ken, what are you doing, Owen? Just seeing what they're doing. Letting them know I'm here. Seeing what they look like. It's you know what I mean. I look at these Spurs fans, and I know I've got Spurs fans with my family. I've got Spurs fans who are good friends of mine and from Islington, born and bred. How they could be such traitors, I'll never forgive them. Any Spurs fan born in Islington that supports Tottenham is an absolute traitor. They've got no honour whatsoever. You're from Islington, you support Arsenal. You're from Harringay, you support Tottenham. That's how you do it. But there's a few traitors in me that I know, friends of mine, who support Tottenham. How you do it, I don't know. Do they like being unhappy in their lives? Is there something wrong with their parenting? Do I need to take them to a psychologist? I mean, come on, what's going on there? But yeah, Derby Day for me, absolutely love it. It's the biggest game of the calendar. I have goosebumps. I can't wait there. I wake up early. As soon as if it's an evening game, I'll have a half day from work. I have half day, even though the kickoff is at 8 o'clock. I'll finish work at 12, and I'll just watch videos of all the North London derbies. I'll watch the good ones first that we've won. Then I'll watch the draws. Then I'll watch the defeats. Not because
you do that every North London derby day.
I watch all the games. I watch all the games going back to 50 years. 40 or 50 years. So I watch the games in the 80s. I watch the games in the 90s, and I highlights, of course. That's how much the North London derby means to me. It means so much to me. Being born and bred from Islington, know full well that it's the biggest game of my life. I love it when your fans packed the away end. I used to love it at Highbury. I used to love it when you had the old North Bank. Loved it. I want that kind of edge. One guy, a friend of mine, we went to Brentford away, and he said to me, when I went down to Spurs away, when it was at White Hart Lane, I was scared. I said, "Were you?" And I went, "Had you?" But when you were scared walking down the gauntlet, How do you feel? Was it great? Well, yeah, it was great. I was scared, but it was great. But you know what I mean? It's the anticipation. You know, you hate us, we hate you. We know full well that if we win, your life, your weekends are done. If you win, it's a case where I have to hide myself. Now, Melvin, I've told Gary and I've told Chris Cowlin, if you had won the Champions League against Liverpool, I would have left the country.
Yeah, man.
I've had to leave the country. I couldn't. There'd be no podcast. You wouldn't hear from me. I'll just say to my wife, "That's right. We're going to move. We're going to move somewhere where there's no football whatsoever. That they don't have Premier League." As an Arsenal fan, if you guys have won that Champions League before us, the humiliation. It didn't matter that we had Chelsea in the Europa League. That was humiliating itself. Arsenal, Chelsea on the 29th of May. In a Europa League final, 3 days later, Liverpool Spurs are playing the Champions League. We're meant to be a bigger club than Spurs, yet you're playing the Champions League final. We're playing the Europa League. That's humiliation in itself. But the thought that you could win it, the thought that you can get a last-minute penalty and you'll win it, or the thought that, you know, Hugo Lloris would save a penalty from Salah and Harry Kane will take a penalty that Spurs can win the Champions League. I swear to God, I had nightmares.
Instead, it was perfect for you, Ken, because they got a penalty in the first minute, didn't they?
Let me tell you something now. On the day of the Champions League final, I was actually stressed out. I woke up early and I thought, oh my God, I had a dream Spurs won the Champions League. Oh my God. And I woke up.
See, you're dreaming about Tottenham, Kenny. You're dreaming about.
No. What I'm trying to say, the reason why I spoke about it is that the thought of you winning the Champions League was too much to take. And then when Salah scored that penalty in the second minute, I thought, oh, thank God.
Ken, would you feel like that if we won any other trophy or just the Champions League?
Look, let me tell you something now. Spurs, you think about the reason why it's nothing to do with Spurs. It's the implications. We're in the Champions League for 20 years consecutively under Arsene Wenger. We only got one final, got to one semi-final, and mostly we're out on the last 16. You guys, Pamper fan under the Poch, and then Harry Redknapp, Pamper fan, you actually did better than us in the Champions League. You used to get to you used to get the couple of quarterfinals, and you got to a final where you beat Ajax. You were 1-0 down. Yeah. At home, I was sending Spurs fans all the memes. I was giving it the large, and then I don't know what happened. You know, Lucas Moura, from the gods. Yeah, man. It was 2-2. I was watching it at home. My mum is an Arsenal fan. I just went there for dinner. And then when Lucas Moura scored that goal, we were just like, we couldn't believe it. We were shocked. Yeah. We went, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. And
I've got goosebumps. I've got goosebumps you talking about that.
Hey,
Lucas Moura goal.
Hey, you know something? I've got eczema. And you got to the final. I've got eczema. You've got goosebumps. I've got eczema.
If it had played him in the final, we probably would have won it.
That's enough about that. That's enough about that final defeat, Kenny. You mentioned about you fear Heung-min Son. What other players do you fear? Because having a look at the stats here, James Maddison, the top scorer between Spurs and Arsenal players this season, 8 in the Premier League. Havertz was 7. Brennan Johnson was 7. Assists, Saka 10. Of course, he won't be playing on Wednesday. Heung-min Son was 6. Dejan Kulusevski with 4. And tackles, Destiny Udogie, who won't be playing on Wednesday, with 50. 50 tackles, Thomas Partey with 49, and Saliba with 40. Who do you fear in this Tottenham Hotspur side, Kenny?
The player I fear is Song. Now, I have to bow to your superior knowledge of your player and your captain, but every North London derby I've been to, home and away, he's turned up. You know, if he isn't setting up a chance, he scored. No, don't get me wrong. Let's not forget last season, he got both your goals. Albeit mistakes, a mistake from Saka for the first goal and James Maddison robbed Jorginho, but he turned up. He scored 2 goals. Let's not forget, you know, the League Cup game where I saw you on the show, my Finsbury Park sister, when you couldn't help reminding her of Dele Alli's lob over Petr Cech, but Son scored the first goal. So for me, that's a player I really fear. But I won't lie. I've been slagging off James Maddison. I said that James Maddison is probably a boy band member who can't sing, but know me, he's probably going to shove my words right down my throat, straight down to my toes, and he'll turn up because if anything, James Maddison loves it when you're on TV, live on TV. He'll love to put the show on. So that is a player that I think is your how I say it, is one of your secret weapon, James Maddison, because I do think that he like big shot window. 2 shorts now, the England coach. A performance against Arsenal, give him a food for thought. For the World Cup qualifiers. So James Maddison's going to be like the how do I say it, the quiet assassin. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's still the boy band member who can't sing.
When you were talking about someone looking like a boy band member who can't sing, I actually thought you were talking about Gary.
Well, I definitely can't sing. I'll tell you that much.
I always tell Gary that I have seen Gary's act. It's very good, but I won't book you.
Thank you, Ken.
How have you seen Gary? Let's move on very quickly after this. But how have you seen Gary's act?
Well, I don't know. It involves him taking his top off, showing off his abs, and showing off all those toes.
We'll move on.
Just on social media, I don't think Kenny's been a paid customer. I don't think.
We'll move on, Gary. We're moving on.
No. As I said, I won't book you.
Wait, listen. If we beat Arsenal, Kenny, I'll give you a free strip.
Look,
no
we're
shots,
moving on.
mate. No shots.
Right, Gary. Let's come to you. This is the starting 11 that Ange Postecoglou put out against Tamworth. Kinski in goal, Poro, Dragushin, Gray, Reguilon, Saar, Basuma, Maddison, Johnson, Timo Werner, Mikey Moore. The subs, Austin, Bergvall, Spence, Dorrington, Kulusevski, Lancashire, Elise, Solanke and Son. I think this is a fairly easy one, Gary. What changes do you think Ange Postecoglou will make to this team that are going to face Arsenal on Wednesday? What would be your predicted 11? What would you hope that Ange Postecoglou will do on Wednesday evening at the Emirates?
This is very easy. Son comes in, Solanke comes in, Kulusevski comes in, Jed Spence comes in. I think that's pretty much it. I can't really see there being any other changes other than that. Yeah, that's it. And let's hope we can get a result. I think that's where we are. I mean, I just don't look. Maybe after an hour or so, 70 minutes, maybe Son gets rested and comes off because Ken just touched on Son, and yes, he does turn up a lot for North London derbies and stuff. But I do feel Son has just lost an inch of pace now. He is slowing down a little bit. But yeah, he'll start the game. He's not gonna be an impact sub, Son. Not for the North London derby, Chris. No way.
He might have lost. You were very generous there by saying an inch of pace. A lot of people say a yard of pace, but
yeah,
I feel like I'm very biased about Heung-min Son because he's probably my all-time favourite Tottenham Hotspur player.
No, and rightly so. So.
He can still turn it on though, Gary, can't he?
He can, Chris. He can still turn it on, but I think at the moment with Son, he's just taking one too many touches. He's holding on to that ball for a little bit too long, and also when he's making them runs, he has lost a bit of pace, But listen, it's a North London derby. All the old cliches, form goes out the windows, and someone's going to be the hero tomorrow. Someone is going to have a great game, and someone's going to get man of the match, and it could be Son. I know Kenny's, he's talking about Maddison. He's a bit nervous, but I think if I was to choose out of the two, who would probably have an absolute blinder of a game, it would only ever be Kulu or Son for me, really. I don't think it's going to be anyone else in that Tottenham team, But can Son get a goal or two against Arsenal? 100%. But it's a weird thing, Chris, because right through, Harry Kane's career, there was never really much time where, not for a long period of time, where I was feeling like I'm feeling about Son. Yes, when Harry Kane come back from injury, he needed a couple of games to kind of get back full throttle and go for it. But with Son, Chris, I think even 6 months, 8 months ago, we were having these conversations about Son, God, I hope he proves me wrong tomorrow and bags 2 or 3 goals. But I don't think he's the same Son, under Mourinho with Harry Kane there. But maybe part of that is not having Harry Kane anymore, Chris. I don't know. But I don't think we got that Son that we did have before, mate.
Gary, earlier on, of course, Ange Postecoglou had his press conference and he confirmed that Richarlison is back in the squad. He was harassing. That was the word he used, harassing Ange Postecoglou for the last 10 days or so, wanting to be a part of the squad. Of course, he's coming back to face Arsenal. Now, we so often on the podcast talk about players. I spoke yesterday with Sophie, the Arsenal fan, and we were talking about the shithousery side. And Spurs don't normally have those types of players. But one person that can or does use the dark arts, as a lot of people call it, Richarlison. This is probably the perfect game for him to come back into, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he reminds me a lot like Lamella. He's got that side to him. And then we do need that in the North London derby. And I think that's where a lot of time, we've fallen short. Not necessarily just Arsenal, but, when we play Chelsea or, when we come across Liverpool, I won't say City because we always up our game for them. But that is where you need them sort of players, like aggravate the Arsenal players, get in there, dive, time waste, do everything you can and hopefully win as a penalty. Do you know what I mean? But I think he'd be perfect for it. The thing is, Chris, I said before about Richarlison, there's a player in there and I do like Richarlison, but he's just got to keep fit. That's the problem with him, Chris, He gets a good run of games. The last time he got the assist and literally from the assist he was injured. And you're like, what's going on? If he could stay fit, he'd be great. But listen, he could come into that North London derby and he could have an absolute blinder. He's another player I would certainly feel that could do it. And like you said, he can wind up the Arsenal players, and get us a penalty or something. He really could. If we're like, Chris, let's just say we're winning by, I don't know, 1 or 2 goals and we've got a few minutes to go. You kind of want that ball to go to Richarlison, didn't you? You want it to go to him because he's going to roll over and, and say contact and frustrate them. And we need that. Do you know what I mean? We need them sort of players, So yeah, let's see. Oh, I feel sick. And I'm on this tomorrow night after the game. I feel sick already tonight.
Does it frustrate you in a way, though, Gary, that we don't tend to use the dark arts because Ange Postecoglou just simply dismisses that all the time? He's not interested. He hates stoppages in the game. He certainly don't want his side to go down that route.
But you need that. Listen, Chris, if it gets to the 92nd minute, all right, and we're winning 1-0 in the Emirates, I want it to go into the corner. I want to see Richarlison with that ball in the corner. And I want whatever Arsenal player it may be, I want Richarlison to be forwarding over, rolling around like he's been shot and time wasting, getting that Arsenal player a yellow card because he's got or maybe a second yellow because he's already booked because he's got the first yellow off Richarlison. This is what you want, and then we come away from that game with a win. Arsenal end up with 10 men because Richarlison's got him sent off and everyone's happy apart from Kenny Ken.
Melvin, I'm going to come to you shortly on team selection, but let's first hear from Ange Postecoglou. This is what you had to say ahead of the North London derby.
Yeah, look, all these things are challenges we need to overcome. And look, everything to one side, it's a derby, it's a big game. So irrespective of what's gone on beforehand, even if we were flying and in top position, it wouldn't change the significance of this game. You understand that it's a standalone fixture in that it means a hell of a lot to our supporters, to our club. So that's the focus, and that's what we've got to try and sort of really hone in on in terms of us wanting to really bring our best performance of the day so that we can make our supporters happy, and also again in the context of our season, it's just really important we start winning games in the league. So that's where kind of the emphasis lies. I said I don't think things like turning points or significant moments. I just don't see it in that prism, particularly where we are at. We've had some pretty significant wins, and yet we haven't kicked on from them this year. So if we do get the job done tomorrow night, then we've still got to make sure that our focus then is on another challenging game on the weekend.
Melvin, talking about the team selection, I know Kenny spoke very highly about James Maddison. A lot of Spurs fans have criticised James Maddison this season. Lucas Bergvall seems to really be taking every single opportunity, the minutes that he's been given, since we've had all of these injuries. What have you made of Lucas Bergvall, and do you think that Lucas Bergvall could have the nod to play against Arsenal on Wednesday?
Personally, I would start Bergvall. I think Maddison is too hot and cold. I think Maddison off the bench, I think offers you more than if you bring on Bergvall off the bench. Well, both could offer you positive things off the bench. I think Bergvall is much more physically. I think he runs more. He's stronger. He's good with his passing. I think he covers a lot more ground. Yes, he's an easy yellow card. He reminds me a bit of Lamela with that aspect. If you bet, £1 on Lamela every single time on a yellow card, you'll most likely win. With the lineup, I think there's a few questions you can ask yourself. Is Kulusevski going to be played as a midfielder or a winger? And do you think he will? If he's going to be played as a winger, that means Johnson could come off the bench and be impactful. Then will you play Bissouma, who's been playing well, with Pape Sarr and Bergvall? There's some options. I think the back line, the back five, is won't change, and we don't have any options. Spence left back, Archie Gray, who's been fantastic, and I cannot wait to see him play against Arsenal at the Emirates as an 18-year-old, playing as a centre back against Kai Havertz, and we'll see what Kai Havertz can do. Is he going to keep him quiet for 90 minutes? It's incredible to see an 18-year-old do that in the Premier League. I don't think we realize what we have in our hands. I don't think the Premier League and opposition fans have realized the age of the players and the level of football that they're playing at. And I think the sacrifice, like I've stomached a lot of defeats this season, knowing that in the long run, these players are going to, mature and learn from these games so much. And I'm just impressed because Archie Gray sometimes looks better than Dragozin, who's an established centre back for Romania, and the other guy is 18, and we call Dom Solanke, Big Dom, but Archie Gray and Bergvall are just as tall as him, and they're probably working on their physique and they're growing and they're learning the speed of the game, and I'm just very happy with the squad we have at the moment. We do have some options, and we have. I'm also happy with Richarlison potentially coming off the bench. Chris, I've mentioned many times on this podcast, I'm a massive fan of Richarlison. Hopefully, if he can stay 4 or 5 games in a row, fully fit and contributes this season, because we need him, because we're coming in the business end of the season. We're still in the League Cup. We're still in the FA Cup. We're still, fighting to get close to the Champions League, and we're still in the Europa League. So we need these players fully fit and helping us this season. And Richarlison can play a massive part still in our season, because he can play left, he can play right, he can play through the middle. We're going to need to rest on in different types. He can, as we've seen last season against Sheffield United, when Richarlison was brought in and he scored, the equalising goal. He's impactful off the bench. He changes the game. He's very useful off the bench, Richarlison, because he offers you something that maybe Solanke doesn't. You can cross the ball to him. You can have two up top if we're desperate, if we're 1-0 down and we need to equalise, or Postecoglou's feeling adventurous and he can put play 4-4-2. Something that doesn't happen much in the Premier League, with these modern formations. But we do have options on the bench. We not as much as we probably like, but we do have some options on the bench. Kulusevski, I think, is a massive game for him. He's a player that I really, really like. And these games, you kind of look out to see who's going to step up, who's your big man player. And Kulusevski stepped up against City. It's going to be interesting. This is the type of game that we learn. I say this a lot about our team. There's a lot of question marks hovering over these players, if they're going to be here for the long term. And we'll see which players will remain doubtful for our long-term project, and which players will step up in a North London derby. For years, I used to buy my Tottenham kits. When I buy when I buy a shirt, I used to buy players that only scored in North London derbies. So I used to have Danny Rose, Kyle Walker, Harry Kane, Son. So any player that was scoring in a North London derby was the player I used to buy the kits. Specifically, I would never buy a player if you didn't score against Arsenal. I think me and Gary bond over the fact that we hate Arsenal so much. And just Kenny, you're a great guy, and if I
love Kenny, but I absolutely despise Arsenal and their fans. But I've got lots of Arsenal friends. But I absolutely hate their fan base, and I absolutely despise their manager as well. He's so annoying,
Keep going,
Gary. Bond over.
Keep going.
Me and Gary bond over the fact of how much we hate Arsenal. And but Kenny, you're a good guy. If I ever
I do love Kenny, and Kenny will tell you that. I talk to Kenny a lot on Instagram and stuff, and Chris, I've said to you, I said I hate Arsenal fans and stuff, but you can't help but not like Kenny. You know what I mean? And actually on this podcast tonight, he's made me feel a bit more confident that we can get a result. But I think it's reverse psychology with Kenny, isn't it, Chris?
Always.
No. Well, sorry to interrupt, Melvin. It's not. We really are that bad. It's don't.
You always say this.
Yeah.
No. This time it's genuine. It's genuine. Last season we were missing chances, but you could tell that there were still players in form. Odegaard's out of form. And Bukayo Saka, without Bukayo Saka, you have to look at our front three is average. Kai Havertz, say no more. Martinelli can't beat his man. Martinelli's, like I said, levels have gone really down. He's basically he plays like a 15-year-old. And Trossard wants out of the club anyway, keeps on trying to negotiate moves to Saudi Arabia. So as soon as he goes, the better. He's a Brighton player who's basically playing for us. He basically won the lottery or won something on a scratch card to play for Arsenal. I'm not saying it. You'll find out for yourselves. If you don't believe me, if it's 0-0 and with half an hour to go, I promise you our players will be running on empty. That's when we've lost a lot of our games. Did you watch the Brighton game?
Yeah.
If you watch the Brighton game, you have to. The first half an hour, we were playing with a lot of intensity, a lot of speed.
Yeah, slow down second half.
Last 10 minutes, Brighton had a couple of chances where, they only they know when they missed it. Second half, they got a penalty. They got that penalty, and before you know it, they were the team that looked like winning.
Yeah. Same
thing against Newcastle. People shouldn't underestimate that we've got problems with that team. Looking lopsided. We've got a left wing who's not good enough. We've got a left back, centre half's playing left back. Our left hand side is our weak link. You've heard it first. And Declan Rice.
It sounds like excuses again.
That's not excuses. It is. You've mentioned your weaknesses and the fact that you haven't got defenders, and you not so much yourselves, but your fans have been critical about Ange and like he's leaving space behind. Well, we're not pitch perfect ourselves. I'm just saying that opportunities to beat Arsenal and the Emirates don't always come for Spurs. If you don't take it, I won't be complaining. But there's an opportunity there for you.
Yeah. Kenny, you mentioned that Brighton game. I'm going to put two teams now on the screen. Now, the one on the left is the Arsenal starting 11 against Brighton. And the one on the right is the team that faced Manchester United recently in the defeat in the FA Cup. Obviously, you've spoken about the injuries as well. Could you give us your predicted starting 11, who you think will start for Arteta's side on Wednesday?
Oh, it's easy. Depends on if Timber is fit, he plays at right back. If not, Thomas Partey plays at right back. But if Timber's fit, it's going to be Raya, Timber, centre half Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes. Lewis Skelly, I think, will start. And the midfield will be Odegaard, Rice and Partey. And then up top, it would be that the front three will be that front three, although Raheem Sterling showed enough when he came on against Man United that he can hurt teams and he can, inject that bit of pace. Unlike Martinelli, who I think, like Songs, lost a yard. So I do think that's going to be that team. But I promise you, I can tell you verbatim how the game's going to go. First half an hour, we're going to be at you with intensity of speed. If we don't score in that first half an hour, and you weather the storm, what will happen is that we're going to revert to set piece FC, where we're going to rely on set pieces because Odegaard will tire. He's finding it difficult to break teams down. And then, again, it depends on how you want to do it. It depends on whether you want to take risks and hit us on a counter-attack. Seriously, I'm just telling you, hand on heart, I'm not waffling.
Kenny,
I'm not trying to feel better. I'm just saying, this is
you probably heard me yesterday talk to Sophie about this, about these set pieces, because you've just said set piece FC. Does it matter how teams score goals? Is it frustrating you that you only score a number of goals through set pieces? Because it looks incredible. Like what has changed with the set pieces? Because Arsenal are a real threat from set pieces. It's fair to say.
You know what's changed is basically it's like people go on like it's so extraordinary what we're doing. And they big up, Nicholas Jova, and they big up, Klopp for Gegenpress. Well, I'm sorry, Gegenpress has been around for 50 years. If you talk about our set pieces, look at me grey hairs. Well, 34 years ago, we used to have the same sort of set pieces. Brian Mould, flick on by Bold, Alan Smith, or Tony Adams heads it in the net. They're not doing anything extraordinary. It's basically regurgitating, replicating what we've always seen, only that we found a way of doing it because, there's a lot of holding, a lot of blocking off of runs, annoying the goalkeeper, pulling their gloves. Right now, referees are onto us. They're looking at the situations. And if you talk about set pieces, a couple of set precedents have been set. I'm just going off the subject, but you saw the penalty that Brighton got against us. But hang on, Arsenal fans, I know some of you watching. What about the penalty we got against West Ham? Now, before, I've never seen a penalty given for a goalkeeper who misses his punch, catches Magalhaes, and we get a penalty. I was in the away end at the London Stadium. I was thinking, penalty for that. And it's the same fault before. But in terms of like the set pieces, if you're a club that thrives on beautiful football, right? And that's what you got. Well, against Man United, we tried that. What happened? Nothing. Newcastle, 6'7" Dan Burn, 6'4" Botman, and a 6'5" goalkeeper. And how do you think that went? Eventually, teams are going to work you out. Referees are going to look out for the shithousery that Big Sis was talking about yesterday. So you're going to have to find another way. And if you've got a creative player who's not creating chances, then it's going to be a long night. Because eventually, whenever something works, there's always going to be a tactician who's going to think, right, we're going to stop that. So by all means, big up the set pieces, but it hasn't been like overly successful as it was last season. There's no element of surprise.
Kenny, let's stay with you for a second because earlier today, Google released a video of former Tottenham Hotspur player. Of course, he went to Arsenal, was very successful there, Sol Campbell. Now, last year, he did quite a big interview with a couple of newspapers regarding the abuse that Sol Campbell actually receives from Tottenham Hotspur fans. He said, look, life goes on. Move on. That was his words. Move on. Now, what do you make of this video? And for those people who haven't seen it, do you want to describe it? Because I don't even think I can.
Well,
do you know what, Kenny? I had to watch it three times before I actually knew that he was promoting a phone. I thought, what is this?
Well, the fact is, he's very provocative. There's no doubt about it. It's very provocative. And so if bang goes the chance of Spurs fans ever forgiving him, I don't think you'll ever forgive him as well. And you know what? From a sort of like North London thing, I'm actually glad you don't forgive him because the more you hate Sol Campbell, it for me, it brings out the importance of this game. It brings out the importance of this rivalry. There's a lot of people, misguided fans, last season who were chirking for Spurs against Man City. I couldn't care less where we were in the table or how it affected us. It's Tottenham playing Man City. I wanted Man City to thrash you. I didn't care whether it might have helped Arsenal. If we're that crap that we've got to rely on you for something, like we did in 98, 99, then something's wrong. But in terms of like Sol Campbell, the fact is that if an Arsenal player had done that, say Spurs was a team that was successful, Spurs was a team that were winning titles and had the famous back four, there's no way I'm forgiving an Arsenal player for going to Tottenham. I don't care what circumstances. I'll hate them, and I would compose similar songs. So I get where you're coming from. One thing I do always question though is that you forgave Pat Jennings. Pat Jennings was a bigger legend than Sol Campbell ever was, and he won trophies, real trophies at Spurs. Didn't win the league, but he won. He played in cup finals for you. You know, he had 67 cup final. He won the League Cup in 71 and 73. He won the UEFA Cup in 1972. You were in the final in 74 against Feyenoord. You know, the battle where the two firms, you know, decided that football didn't matter. And he was with us for 8 years when he won the FA Cup final against Man United in 1979. You have a Pat Jennings lounge.
We don't anymore.
All right, but Pat Jennings is still one of your matchday hosts.
Ambassador,
so
yeah.
He's ambassador. Yeah, and we always knew that Pat Jennings loved Spurs more than Arsenal when he played for us. But we never forgot about that. But I'm saying,
answer me that question, Kenny. Why is that? What's the reason?
You tell me why Pat Jennings has been welcomed at Spurs for open arms and Sol Campbell's on. Both left on a free transfer. In 1977, it was actually Keith Birkinshaw said, no, he didn't fit. Pat Jennings was the main man. So he replaced Pat Jennings with goalkeepers like Barry Daines, Mark Kendall, that were Amelia Lexic. Those are the
Is it the generation? Is it social media, do you think?
No, it's nothing to do with it. It's the reason why you hate Sol Campbell is because of the fact that it was the implications. His first season he went there, he won the double. He was the missing link that we needed. He was a replacement for, Bold. And Martin Keown. We needed Sol Campbell. We needed him.
Now, what I meant is the fact that it's never forgotten, or the fact that some people don't ever want to move on from it because
why should they? Why should they? I like the fact that your fans hate Sol Campbell because in prison, I want every North Londoner who supports Arsenal and Tottenham to realise the only rivalry that matters is Tottenham. The most engaging derby is Arsenal-Tottenham. Forget Liverpool-Everton. Liverpool-Everton is just two family members having a squabble over Sunday lunch. The Manchester derby is basically night and day because Man City are just levels above Man United. The North London derby is akin to Rangers and Celtic. I hate Spurs with a passion. I love you guys, but I hate your club. I hated the fact that under the Poch, you were levels above us. I hated Dele Alli. I hated Harry Kane, traitor, who was an Arsenal boy, who basically we taught him all we knew, and he went and excelled for you guys. I hate Spurs. Your grand, whenever I go to your grand, I always make sure I take wet wipes and disinfectant, and I have a bath.
It's a wonderful thing, Kenny, isn't it?
It's a wonderful stadium, but I still need disinfectant when I come out of there.
Gary, we don't want to talk too much about Sol Campbell, but I know that you'd probably like to say a word or two on it.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I think Kenny sort of was just leaning on the fact of Pat Jennings, but I think with one, you have Pat Jennings that won trophies and stuff with both clubs, who's a real man's man, an actual gentleman. And then you've got Sol Campbell, who's an egotistical, deceitful, lying wanker, who the day before said he was staying at Spurs and the next day he left. You look at Pat Jennings and you think, great footballer, great legend. You look at Sol Campbell and you just want to punch him in the face because regardless if he had left us or gone to Arsenal, gone to Liverpool or West Ham, wherever it is, he's not a nice person. Off the pitch, on the pitch, and he plays the self-righteous, narcissistic victim after he comes out last year and does his documentary and then does that, which proves that all it was about to Sol Campbell is not just trophies, but it's about money because there's no other reason to do that advert today other than money. And do you know why don't they advert? Because it's about Sol Campbell. and he wants everything to be about Sol Campbell. And that's why you can't use Pat Jennings as an example, because one's a man and one's a wanker. And he's the sort of bloke that would sleep with your ex-wife, but calls himself your best mate.
It's funny. I swear him and Sheringham fell out over Nicole Smith.
Yeah, they did. And that's Sol Campbell.
On the podcast, we don't speculate about people's relationships. So what people do in their private lives is up to them.
And apologies for swearing, Chris. You know, I never swear on the podcast, but when you say that person's name and he does what he did today, it needs to be said.
Gary, I knew I should have gone to Melvin on that question. Let's talk about the stats ahead of the North London derby, because the season so far, we've got Arsenal down a second at the moment, but they could be third because whilst we're recording this, Forest are playing Liverpool. Spurs are, of course, in 12th. Total points, Arsenal have got 40 to Tottenham's 24. Goals scored, Arsenal 39 to Tottenham's 42. Goals conceded, Arsenal 18 to Tottenham's 30. Shots, Arsenal 197 to Tottenham's 218. Shots on target, Arsenal 102 to Tottenham's 113. Shots off target, Arsenal 95 to Tottenham's 105. Block shots, Arsenal 79, Tottenham 79. Passing accuracy, Arsenal 86.46% to Tottenham's 85.72%. Points gained from a losing position, Arsenal 8, Tottenham 10. And points dropped from a winning position, Arsenal 10, Spurs 15. Melvin, when you look at these stats, they're pretty impressive from Tottenham's point of view, aren't they?
Yeah, like I said before, when you look at the performances, like the eye test, we should be a lot better, a lot higher up the table than we actually are. I mean, the stats are pretty even, but it's a North London derby, and I mean, teams they're
not even. We're better in every stat here.
Yeah, except the one that matters. They're in second and we're in 12th, unfortunately, which is very frustrating for us. But yeah, if you go off the stats, I mean, we should be beating Arsenal, but football unfortunately doesn't always work that way, and it really doesn't, because form goes out the window. How many times did we play them and we were miles better than them in the league? And they turn up, and and I also feel it works the other way around. If when they sometimes are better than us. I remember when I started watching, Tottenham was under Harry Redknapp, and so that era when they were always in the Champions League positions and we were trying to be there, and we were always the underdog, and we would go to the Emirates and often unfortunately lose, but sometimes when we were the underdogs, we were the ones that taking a point and was happy with it, and or I think the last victory was under Harry Redknapp as well, wasn't it? The Campbell header. So it's been a while, and I think as much as I hate to say, they've come to our place and won more often than we have at theirs, and it's something that I think the football club has to work at. And I think if there was a manager to change that at Tottenham, would be Postecoglou. I think he's trying to change that at the club for us to become, there's a couple of stadiums that Chris goes to every single season that we never get anything. The Emirates very rarely, Chelsea, Liverpool. So the manager has to really work hard to change this about the club and finally become a team where we go to the Emirates and get 3 points, not just one. We have to get 3 points. I think there's some the young players sometimes are a bit more fearless than the older players. It's why I think he's happy with the youth, because he's trying to get this fearless attitude into them. If we go to the Emirates and win, I think he'll do the same, and we'll go to Enfield with the same attitude and the same mentality and try to get the victory there too. So the stats really don't paint a picture. I think I think every game is his own game. In the Premier League, you never know what's going to happen. There's lots of unpredictable factors. I mean, sometimes you need a bit of luck in football. I say this to you quite often, Chris. You know, we've been unlucky in the past when we played Arsenal, especially at the Emirates, you know, with second yellows or if it's a penalty. And even though we've been awarded many penalties at the Emirates, I mean, Harry Kane scored about 15 of them. But we'll see. It's always one of those games where I bite all my nails off because I can't deal with the stress. Yeah, so it's one of those games, and we'll see. I mean, we'll be buzzing if we win, and then especially with the circumstances with Arsenal challenging for the league and with the position we are in at the moment, I think 3 points will do us a world of good. I think the fan base will calm down. We'll finally be a bit happier with Postecoglou and our trajectory this season. And we need the 3 points because we need to be climbing that table.
I'm just going to skip to Gary on these stats here. Gary, Tottenham have won just one of their last 31 Premier League away games at Arsenal, drawing 12 and losing 18 since that 3-2 victory back in November 2010 that we've already spoken about. And in the last 8 games in the Premier League, we've only won 1. We've drawn 2 and lost 5, and that win was that 5-0 win at Southampton. I suppose you've already said that you don't think the Spurs are going to go to the Emirates on Wednesday. What do you think it is about this stadium, Highbury, the Emirates? Why do we not go to grounds like this? And like Melvin just mentioned there, Chelsea, Liverpool. What is it about these grounds that we really struggle at? Why?
The other team want it more. You know, it's a psychological thing because over the years we've had better teams.
What for all these years though, the players.
Well, because it doesn't matter what manager we have in charge and what players we have. When a team's set up, if they go to Stamford Bridge, the Emirates or Anfield, they feel already like they've lost the game. You know, honestly, it's becoming annoying. And that's why I've got no confidence going into tomorrow, Chris, because I think at best we could maybe nick a draw. And I use those words, nick a draw. But yet when we're talking about going to Etihad, I mean, you clipped me when we was at the YouTube Awards. And I was 100% certain we would go up there and spank Man City. And people thought I was mental. But the Tottenham players will lift their games to that game. You know, they can hammer Villa, you know, Man United, West Ham, Man City home and away. That's what they do. But when we get into that Emirates tomorrow, you know, I know Kenny Ken's saying, oh, you know, if you get past that half hour and it's 0-0, you could nick that game. But honestly, Chris, even if we get past half an hour, even if it's the last 10 minutes of the game and it's 0-0, I'm not looking at that game thinking Tottenham's going to win because I think it's a defeated kind of mentality from the Tottenham players. And I really, really hope that I'm proved wrong tomorrow. But year after year, Chris, and you know yourself, going to every away game of the season, you've seen it time and time again at Stamford Bridge, Anfield and the Emirates. And to be honest, it probably irritates me and annoys me as much as looking at that advert that idiot made today. It's so annoying. You just know it's going to happen, you know. But look, I get what Melvin says as well, and I get what Ken says. And yes, under Ange Postecoglou, and yes, you know, Kenny touched on the Man City away game and that, and I get that, you know. And yes, we've just beaten Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. Probably should have won by more. We are capable of it. But do I think the Tottenham players and the team are going to turn up tomorrow for this game? Probably not.
Gary, Kenny gave us quite a descriptive way that he thinks the game is going to go.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you think this game's going to go? The opening...
I'll tell you exactly how the game's going to go.
The opening 15 minutes, I think, is very, very vital. You know, the stats prove that.
Yeah, I'll tell you how the game's going to go. The first 5 minutes will come out. And we'll look like we're playing some good football. And so will Arsenal. And just before half-time, we'll concede and go 1 down. The second half will start. We'll come out all guns blazing and look like that we'll probably get an equaliser. We may even possibly get an equaliser, but I'm more likely to say we probably won't. And in the end, Arsenal win it 2-0. And I'll be on your podcast tomorrow night at 11 p.m. saying, here we are. What did I say yesterday, Chris? And I'm probably overly confident in that because the Tottenham team and players have done it to us year in, year out, over and over and over at the Emirates, at Stamford Bridge and at Anfield. Chris, there's been many occasions where you said to me, Stamford Bridge, do you want to go? And I'll never go Stamford Bridge. It's pointless. It's absolutely pointless until I can see some positive change in our gameplay when we go to these grounds. I'm always going to think the same thing. You know, I really hope I'm wrong. But like I said before we went onto the show, we've got more chance of beating Liverpool at Anfield in that Carabao Cup second leg than what we have beating Arsenal tomorrow. And I'll stand by that.
Gary, what's your score prediction then?
2-1 Arsenal.
Bloody hell. Melvin, how do you think it's going to go?
I don't know, I just have this weird feeling we might win. I don't know. I just feel that them missing Saka is a big thing, and even them in the last couple of games losing at home, it's like it's not a fortress, is it, this season? Yeah, I mean you can beat them. I just feel that we do have goal scorers in the team. I mean our front line all can score. There's goals in our team, where I just feel that their team is maybe struggling to score at the moment. Where I worry is the back line. I know Dragozin and Archie Gray are doing an okay job. You know, Van de Ven and Romero are obviously missing, but I also think Bissouma could have a really good game. He's been playing really well in the last couple of games. I think the game's going to be won in the midfield. If he plays Pape Sarr and Bergvall, they have really, really strong legs and can really run. I honestly pray we win, but I can see us. I'll say 2-1 Spurs, and that will end our clean sheet run. But I think even with the goalkeeper, is a bit of a game changer. Something we've not mentioned much.
You're right.
I think he offers us something that we didn't have before. I think if Foster was going to play, I'd be the one betting on Arsenal to win. But I think with our new goalkeeper, he gives us a bit more confidence. He makes even Dragozin play, you know, a bit more comfortable. He looked better against Liverpool. I mean, Dragozin, the one that played for Romania, is a quality defender, and we need him for Arsenal to play like he played in the Euros. I mean, he was immense that game, and it's going to be tight. I mean, they beat us only by 1 goal in the summer, and every single game against Arsenal is extremely tight. And I just feel that we can win under these circumstances.
I love it how you talk about our clean sheet run. It's only 2.
Yeah, but it's when it's been so long,
though,
Chris,
he has looked really good.
And me and Chris over the past few years, we talk about our defense, and when we've had players like Eric Dyer, Sanchez, and these guys move on, and when we cannot keep 1 clean sheet, and all of a sudden we're playing with an 18-year-old, having 2 clean sheets in a row is finally something positive.
If we keep a third clean sheet and get a couple of goals, do you know what? I've never wanted to be more wrong on a score prediction. I really, really hope and pray that I'm wrong, and I'm on this one tomorrow night, Chris, at 11 o'clock, bouncing off the walls. I'll be in Kenny Ken's inbox on Instagram. It'd be great.
Gary, if it's a 2-1 and I'm correct, I want to mention tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely.
And if we win, Kenny, we'd love to have you back on the podcast tomorrow evening. But if we lose, you're not welcome at all.
Kenny's always welcome with me.
I'm not. I haven't. It'll be the first time in history that you invited an opposition fan to your show after a match. Yeah. So I don't know. I'll be a history maker, but I'll only be invited if you guys win. But you know something. One thing I would say. The reason why we always do well at the Emirates is because I think up until 2 years ago, both Spurs and Arsenal, they turned their the home games into a fortress. You think about it, before we won in 2023, all the games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium we lost. We lost the lockdown game. We got smashed in another lockdown game, and then the first game back, when it was a shootout for the top 4, you smashed us 3-0. You actually,
I was there. That That was a good
Yeah.
feeling, and
Well,
also
I
the
didn't
atmosphere
enjoy it.
in the stadium was
I-
brilliant. But it's not been like that in a while, Ken. You're right.
And it has been like that a while. But whilst at the Emirates, one of the things is, regardless of the form, we it's a case of we dare not lose to you, even though you've had better teams than us under the Poch. You always found it very difficult to beat us, even when you went 1 up. There was one game you went 2-0 up in the Poch's last North London derby, and we somehow ended up with 2-2. So
Yeah.
it's the determination of our fans. We always drum it into our players that the only game you need to win is Spurs. There's none of this nonsense where it's just another game. Now, you've got some of our fans who for some reason, they use rivalry that, occurred when they were kids in, school where, kids in London don't support their local clubs, do they? They all support Man United and Liverpool. So if the school bully was a Man United fan and you're an Arsenal fan, instead of thinking Spurs are your rivals, you think Man United are rivals. And I can't stand Arsenal fans who don't understand the meaning of this game. This game means everything. And thankfully, the players understand that. And that's why we always raise their game. However, everyone says form goes out the window. Sometimes form is the norm. Sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Kenny, can I ask you about the atmosphere at the Emirates this season, and what atmosphere do you think is going to be like on Wednesday? Because the week that you've had, the disappointing week that you've had, in those two home defeats. I know obviously the game was the draw, but of course losing on penalties. So the Arsenal fans are not happy with the past week. But it's fair to say that the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this season, it's been pretty mixed. There's been days where it's been really, really quiet.
Yeah, but you've got to remember one thing is that it's like at the Emirates sometimes. We lift ourselves for the big games. We lift ourselves for Liverpool at home. We lift ourselves for Chelsea at home. We lift ourselves for Man United and Man City. Those are big games. And the derby as well, we lift ourselves. So it's clearly the same for your team, for Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well. A lot of people say things, it's down to the new set of fans. I don't think it's that. It's genuine games that put hairs in your chest. Like West Ham, you lift yourself because West Ham fans have talked you guys into thinking that they're rivals as well. But really, the West Ham-Tottenham rivalry is because some of your fans, dare I say, have moved to North Essex. So if you're working in an office in Essex, half of them are Tottenham and half of them are West Ham. So that's probably where you get Derby from. But I'll tell you one thing now, Chris. I promise you, we lose tomorrow, there's going to be anarchy, murders. All you've got to do, Chris, while sharing your podcast, Melvin and Gary, have a cup of tea after the match, give it an hour, and get on all the fan cams. I promise you, there'll be anarchy if we lose. Yeah. But hopefully, you'll have a cup of tea, get on all the fan cams, and we've won. I can't guarantee.
If we win, Kenny, we'll be live at 11 o'clock Wednesday evening. And as I said, you're very welcome to come on. Lastly, 4 results in the Premier League from this evening. Brentford 2, Manchester City 2. Brentford got a 92nd minute equaliser. Wow. Chelsea 2, Bournemouth 2. Chelsea got a 95th minute equaliser.
Oh, bloody hell.
Graham Potter has got off to a winning start. West Ham 3, Fulham 2. And it's now just finished. Nottingham Forest 1, Liverpool 1. So Nottingham Forest do move up to second. Kenny, can I just ask you very, very quickly about Nottingham Forest? Are you surprised by them this season under Nuno Espirito Santo?
Not surprised at all, because I say that Nuno Espirito Santo is built for teams like Wolves and Nottingham Forest. In terms of like some managers can't manage big clubs. At big clubs, he was never suited to Spurs because of the expectations. You expect a style of play where you need to play with a bit of panache, attacking football with endeavour, whilst he's a safety first manager where his style evolves. You ain't got time for that. Now, Nottingham Forest, he's got players that if he said to one of the players, play there, go and face the wall, they go and do it. You can't go to Spurs and use the same formula you use at Wolves and Nottingham Forest and expect to do well. So I was surprised. He's at the right club. But if you got him at Man United, got him at a big club, it wouldn't work.
Right, I've got a final question for you all, and there's 5 questions within the last question, and they're nice and easy for you. Kenny, I'm going to start with you. I'd like you to predict the Premier League champions, the Carabao Cup champions, the FA Cup winners, the Europa League winners, and the Champions League winners.
Okay, that's a good one. The FA Cup, the League, Liverpool. You said the Carabao Cup. I do think Liverpool are going to beat you. I'm sorry to say it, but I think they'll beat you, so I'm going to go Liverpool. The FA Cup, Man United, again. The Europa League, yeah. The Europa League, I'm convinced it's going to be...
Could you be dreaming about us again, Kenny?
You know what? I think Man United and Spurs have got a good chance in it. But I'm going to have to go with probably somehow I fancy Galatasaray.
Yeah?
Yeah, I fancy it. I don't know what it is. Maybe I've drank something in water, but I do think that the amount of games of competition, I think the English side will find it difficult to win. The Champions League, I think Liverpool win the Champions League. I really think they'll win it. And the Conference League, Chelsea win it.
Gary?
God, I don't know, Chris. I'm sitting here thinking, trying to give you answers for all of them, but it's a tough one. I mean, I think that, even though they've dropped points tonight, I think Liverpool got the Premier League. I said before the season started that we'd win the Europa, so I'm going to have to stick with the Europa. But can I see Tottenham winning 2 trophies in the season? Probably not. But maybe. I mean, we are getting to the Carabao Cup final. That is a definite. But are we beating Newcastle? Oh, God, I don't know.
What gives you so much hope that we're going to get to the Carabao Cup final?
No, it's not hope. I just know it. We're getting past Liverpool at Anfield. We're going to get a draw and we're in the final. That's a definite. I'm certain with that as we was going up in Spanking City. That's a definite, 1,000,000%. But do I think we can beat Newcastle in the final? I don't know.
This is so being clear.
Newcastle might want it more. So I'll go Liverpool. Can't answer them all, but I'll go Liverpool for the league. I'm still angry that you told me Chelsea just equalised in the 95th minute. That's wound me up more than the Sol Campbell advert today. That's really wound me up. You know that. They always do it, don't it? Anyway, Liverpool for the league. Tottenham for the Europa. I don't want to say Newcastle for the Carabao, so I'm just going to say Tottenham as well, and we get 2 trophies. And yeah, the Europa, I'm not the Europa, the Champions League, I don't know. And the Europa Conference, it doesn't matter, does it? It's not important. So it's not a trophy, so that one don't matter. And we'll leave it there.
Melvin?
Kenny, if we win 2 trophies, would you move out the country?
It's not a Champions League.
No.
We don't want Kenny to move. We want him to stay here.
No, I think that it's a very good question. I'm going to answer it simply. I will stay, but I will take my anger out on our manager rather than leave the country.
Yeah.
Imagine we don't win a trophy for so long, but then we win 2 in one season. I mean,
it could happen.
Don't think we would. Yeah. I will say Liverpool win the league. I think maybe Lazio will win the Europa League. I just have a feeling that an Italian team will go far. I think we will win the League Cup. I also have this feeling that we could face Newcastle in the final and beat them. Next FA Cup, I think City will win. And I think Bayern Munich will win the Champions League.
Well, Melvin, thank you so much for being a great guest as per normal on this channel. Where can people find you? What you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, not much. Looking forward to seeing you guys for the Leicester game. Not doing much. I'm here. I'm part of Spurs Malta, and if you want to follow me, my name is written on the screen on Twitter or Instagram. If you're a Spurs fan, I usually follow back. So sorry, Kenny. But yeah, looking forward to tomorrow's game and hopefully hopefully I'll be tuning in and listening to you guys discussing the 3 points.
Thank you, Melvin. And Gary, thank you so much for joining us as always. And of course, we will see you after the Arsenal game when hopefully me and you are both smiling.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm dreading it, if I'm honest with you. I feel absolutely sick. I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. Tomorrow, I'm just going to try and distract myself and stay at the gym all day and just kind of put it off my mind. And then, yeah, I've never wanted to be more wrong with a game than this one tomorrow. I would love nothing more than to shout out Melvin and said, mate, you got it right, a 2-1 win for Spurs. But we shall see, mate. Either way, I will be there at 11 o'clock tomorrow night. I look forward to it. And I think we should get Ken on because he is a very grounded, level-headed Arsenal fan. So whether we win or lose, I think, it's fine with me getting him on. I'm happy with that.
I'm not.
Fair enough. I'm actually going to see it. I probably will see it with a game. It was last time before the North London Derby, Emirates. I was wearing a big coat, and Chris asked me, "Where's your colours?" Says underneath here, but I don't like to have done them. But I want to say that the first time I met Chris was after North London Derby won, and I asked Chris two of the stupidest questions ever. The first question I said to Chris, "How are you?" We've won 3-1. I've got a Spurs fan. How are you? And the second question I asked Chris, where did it go wrong? And that was my introduction when he was coming out the way end.
Well, no wonder you don't want him on, Chris.
Kenny, that was like half a story because it was like, how are you? And then you shoved the camera in my face and said, what do you think of the game? And then you got my thoughts on the camera.
That was actually true. I didn't even give Chris a chance to walk away. He said,
who
the hell is this? Who the hell is this? How does he know me? And you know what I mean? He just walks straight. Chris, I've been watching you for about 5 years, your podcast. I think it's brilliant.
Love it. Brilliant.
Well, Kenny, thank you so much as always for coming on. You're always such a great sport and you speak so highly of Spurs, which is very nice of you. I'll see you before the game.
Might talk me if I don't say anything nice about you guys.
Kenny, where can people find you on social media and what are you up to at the moment?
I'm on Instagram, KennyKen1972, the year I was born, and I'm just about to go on another Arsenal podcast right now.
Wow!
And obviously, I'm going to go to the game tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to the game because it's Spurs. It's Spurs.
Yeah,
it's only Spurs. Simple.
Oh,
and we got to win. We have to win.
Kenny, what was your score prediction, by the way?
I think that it'll be a scrappy 1-0 Arsenal, but don't be surprised if it's just a 1-1.
I'm going to go for a 3-3 draw.
Wow!
I think there's going to be goals in this. I think there's going to be goals.
I'd love that though.
I'm obviously hoping that Spurs go and get.
We haven't conceded anything more than 2 goals.
Yeah, but this is a North London derby. As we all said, anything can happen. Form goes out the window. Some of the guys with the stats today said, Chris, why are you putting all these stats up? It don't mean anything. It's a North London derby. Anything can happen. And it's totally right. Yeah. But I've got to put the stats on the screen because we do it every preview. So, yeah. Gary, Melvin, Kenny, thank you so much for all of your time. I know we've spoken for nearly 2 hours. So thank you so much for talking to me for this amount of time. As we all know, we could speak for double this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And we will see you on Wednesday straight after the game when hopefully Spurs have got the 3 points at the Emirates. And Kenny.
Hey, there's more chance of me singing I Can't Smile Without You than you winning.
Thank you, everyone. Come on, you Spurs.